This call is being
There she goes. All right. So let me see if I can mute because I got my controls out of work. Oh, you did that too. Wow. Boy, she's really good at this stuff. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thank you, Barbara, for doing the controls. You are the controller. This is the 27th episode of You Gotta Believe. I'm really shocked that I can say that. And I want to welcome everybody. Tonight's discussion is NRF2 and retinal diseases, and then the inspirational part is John Stark's Never Gives Up. First, I'd like to thank God for allowing me to reach this moment in time. And I want to dedicate tonight's call to the pilgrims who gave thanks. And happy Thanksgiving to everyone later in the week. Now, the name of the article I'm reviewing tonight is NRF2 is an attractive therapeutic target for retinal diseases. It comes from a Japanese university and was only published very recently in 2016. This is a really bad article with no real new knowledge. Sorry, but I think that I always talk so glowingly about the articles because I find them so exciting and interesting. But I would venture to say that many of the people on this call tonight know more about NRF2 activation and the exciting aspects of it than the people who wrote this article. Sorry to say that, but that's what I found when I did the review. And I think it's instructive to go over the article for what it lacks as well as for what it might say. So the article discussed bartoxolone, sulforaphane, and tecfidera, but had no mention whatsoever of protandim, which I think is kind of scientific malpractice. If this was 2006, it might make sense. But in 2016, talk about NRF2 activators and not mention protandim is really ridiculous. They went as far as to say that there's so many side effects with the NRF2 activators that they did discuss that they felt that perhaps eye drops that were NRF2 activators should be developed to get rid of the systemic side effects of all these NRF2 activators that they said held promise for helping with retinal diseases. Now, we know that NRF2 activation is a critical defense because of its effect on oxidative stress. We also know that oxidative stress is a major contributor to age-related macular diseases. We've talked about that in the past, and anyone who's followed this You Gotta Believe series knows that we've talked about this at length, about various tissues and organs and the eye in particular, and I think all of you know that this is the case. Now, they do have some interesting information. It's kind of a review, however, about that strain of mice called NRF2 knockout mice, which have defective NRF2 pathways. And they say that NRF2 knockout mice display age-related retinal degeneration with accumulation of deposits of waste material known as drusen, and which are oxidized lipids. They also state that glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, posterior uveitis, and central retinal artery occlusions also are common in NRF2 knockout mice that are exposed to oxidative stress. We know all this from prior articles, but it was reviewed here. They talk about the ARED study showing that there is some efficacy of antioxidants in treating aging macular degeneration. And again, they talk about decreased levels of NRF2 occurring in people with or in cells with the diabetic retinopathy and macular degeneration occurring. I think this whole article totally missed the boat because they're not talking at all about what we know about the great effects of NRF2 activation from protandim and the effects that have been shown in 22 peer-reviewed articles which discuss these great effects. So again, I don't know where they are or what planet they're living on, but they really missed it. And I would just like to review a little bit what I mean by that. First, I'd like to say that protandim cannot diagnose, treat, or cure any disease, but it has a tremendous, superb incredible effect on cellular metabolism, activating the NRF2 pathway in a pulsatile fashion, which is very important because continuous activation is actually detrimental to cellular health, but actually the pulsatile activation is perfect, and it causes the NRF2 pathway to work in essence to be a waste management system, like a factory that makes waste along with products and using energy, and now this waste material has to be gotten rid of or else you get pollution. So NRF2 activation causes the cell to make antioxidants that get rid of the free radicals from oxidative metabolism. And we know all that. We also know that NRF2 activation activates genes that cause cellular changes such that it's harder to cause cell death. They also decrease the activation of genes that cause inflammation and scarring. So all the diseases discussed, central retinal artery occlusion, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, posterior uveitis, macular degeneration, all have as a large pathophysiological effect the end pathway of oxidative stress, scarring, inflammation. And NRF2 activation obviously is excellent at fighting against these things. And therefore, anything that increases the effectiveness of the NRF2 pathway would be, in essence, good to consider for helping these conditions. And that's what they were talking about, but they talk about all these other products. And there was an article, as we all know, that compared bartoxolone, sulfurazone, sulforaphane, and Tecfidera against Protandim, and the Protandim was twice as effective as the most effective other NRF2 activator, which is BG12, which became Tecfidera. So here we have a safe and highly effective NRF2 activator that is not mentioned in an article that talks a lot about how dangerous the other NRF2 activators are, such that for eye diseases, they say maybe we can make an eye drop out of something so that it won't be so toxic for the body. And yet they don't talk about something that you can take as a pill once a day that will absolutely activate NRF2 and be completely safe. So in a negative sort of sense, this article was great in showing how great Protandim is, because they were glowingly calling on some possible something to be invented or found that would do the NRF2 activation and be safe, and yet we all on this call know we have it already. So I guess that's my summary of this article, which, as again I said, I think they missed the boat. But we know we have something incredible. Let's do a Mike Huey. Do you realize what we really have, what God has given us in the case of the LifeVantage company and NRF2 activation and NRF1 activation and nutrigenomics? Do you realize what we have at our disposal? How can we ignore it? Don't we need to tell everyone we know? Don't we need to tell everyone we don't even know yet? Don't we need to meet people just so we can tell them? And that's my homage to Mike Huey. Okay, let's get to the inspirational part of our talk. John Starks, NBA player, one of my heroes, played for the New York Knicks for 8 years, played at the two-guard position. He was not drafted. He attended 4 different colleges in his native Oklahoma and only played 1 year of basketball in high school. He finally played 1 year at Oklahoma State, which got him noticed in terms of the NBA, and he had been recruited by a junior college off the playground. People actually watching a pickup game saw a play, and that's how he ended up going to Oklahoma State, and he never, ever gave up. He was a free agent at Golden State, the Golden State Warriors. He was not drafted, and he was cut after 1 season spent on the bench with almost no playing time. After that, he played a year in the CBA and 1 more year in the WBA. Those are kind of minor leagues, NBA-type leagues. So he never gave up. He just played in these. It's like going overseas to play in Turkey or Europe. But he played for 2 years. But then in 1990, he signed in training camp with the New York Knicks. And on the day he was going to be cut from training camp perhaps ending his NBA career and his potential, he injured his knee trying to dunk over Patrick Ewing. Well, the rule was if you're injured, you could not be cut. So he had to stay on the team till December while he got treatment from the trainer for his injured knee. Well, it just so happened there was a position on the team when his knee finally healed, and they signed him. And from there, he went on to become the starting two guard for 8 years, including the starting guard in the 1994 NBA Finals. I remember the 1994 NBA Finals between Houston and New York. There was a great article in Sports Illustrated. They did a one-page kind of biography of all the 4 starting guards in the NBA Finals. John Starks, Derek Harper for the Knicks, Kenny Smith and Vernon Maxwell for the Rockets. Great articles. They talked about this very precarious road to success that Starks had traveled. And the other 3 guards had been stars in, high school and college, drafted high and played for their NBA teams, never went through the adversity John Starks did, never had to prove himself so many times, so many ways. But I just thought, what a great success story. What a great episode of example, I should say, of stick-to-itiveness and never give up and just never quit. The series in 1994 went to Game 7. Game 6 was marred by the O.J. Simpson Bronco chase. If you can see a guy who was a fanatic for the New York Knicks, great sports fan, sitting on his couch yelling at the set because NBC was showing the Bronco chase, which nothing happened. The helicopter is in the air watching the Ford white Bronco with O.J. Simpson in it and not showing the NBA Finals Game 6 and calling NBC to ask them what the heck they were up to, but they didn't answer the phone because I think it was a Sunday. But, just getting a recording. Well, that's kind of how I was. Now, in that game, John Starks was on fire. He had 27 points. The Knicks were up 3-2 in a best-of-7. If they won that game, they would have won the NBA championship. And as it turned out, at the very last moments of the game, with the Knicks down 2, John Starks took a 3, and it was blocked by Olajuwon, who came out to block it out to three-point land. And if that shot had gone in and everything else he threw up the whole game had gone in, the Knicks would have won the series 4-2. But it was not to be. Just really think that Starks is a guy to be emulated. We think about all of the adversity in our own lives. We think about how tough it is sometimes to get moving with LifeVantage or anything else we want to attempt. But look at this guy. He was bagging groceries in a safe way, and he finally made it to the biggest stage of basketball in the world. And he now works in the Knicks front office. He happens to be the all-time leader in three-pointers made, over 200 in one season. And he wore the number 3 for that reason. He accepted the role of sixth man at the end of his career, so he became the sixth man of the year. He's famous also because he dunked left-handed. Most people didn't think he could use his left hand, but he dunked left-handed over Michael Jordan in a famous playoff game at MSG against the Bulls. And he had a legendary competition with Reggie Miller, which almost came to fistfights on the floor many times. So that's my inspiration for the evening. John Starks, who overcame tremendous adversity to make quite a career for himself. Sorry that the article was kind of a negative article, but we can learn by negatives as well. Let's remember that these 22 articles about NRF2 activation, protandim, and various other disorders and various other concepts, they are a tremendous treasure trove of information, and we should all look into them, and I'm glad that we've gone over so many of them. Next week, we'll do one of the articles on skin cancer again, and I'm sure it will have a lot more beneficial information than the article I looked at tonight. So we learn by the negatives as well as the positives. This article is an article of example of what not to do. And with that, I'd like to say God bless all of you. Thanksgiving is on the way, so happy Thanksgiving. And good night. That'll do it. And Barbara, if you're still around, you can stop the recording.